There is a fundamental principle in neuroscience. The more stimuli you allow into your world, the more fragmented your attention becomes. And attention, your ability to direct cognitive resources with intention, is everything. You cannot build discipline, resilience, or identity without it. In a world of constant noise, silence becomes your superpower. When you remove yourself from the chaos, opinions, distractions, validation seeking, you begin to reclaim the energy that was scattered. You begin to concentrate it. That's when real growth starts. Focusing on yourself is not selfish. It is biological efficiency. Your brain rewires based on repetition and attention. If you keep reinforcing the noise of what they said, what they think, what they're doing, you train your mind to abandon your own path. But if you begin to place all that attention inward on your habits, your thoughts, your actions, your brain starts to optimize for you. Progress does not announce itself. It happens in silence. Neuroplasticity, the ability of the brain to change, does not require applause, it requires consistencies. When you keep showing up, even when no one notices, you're there laying down new circuits, new patterns. That is what builds strength. That is what builds identity. Most people lose energy trying to prove themselves. They over-explain, over-perform, overreact. But the truth is, the most dangerous individual is the one who no longer needs to be seen. The one who moves in silence. The one who is too busy building to speak. When you stay silent, you reduce the noise in your mind. You regulate cortisol. You sharpen dopamine pathways that drive internal motivation, not external validation. This is how you begin to operate from a place of power, not pressure. In the current age of hyperconnectivity, attention has become one of the most scarce and valuable resources. Everywhere you turn, something is demanding it: your phone, social media, emails, news alerts, advertisements, conversations, and even your own racing thoughts. But beneath all this noise lies a critical truth. Attention is not just a mental faculty, it is the gateway to everything you experience, believe, and become. Where you place your attention quite literally shapes the structure and function of your brain. And the moment you choose to direct that attention inward, you take control of the machinery that drives your behavior, emotions, and transformation. The human brain is an adaptive organ. It is constantly revealing itself based on what you repeatedly focus on. This process, known as neuroplasticity, means that every thought you think, every action you take, every emotion you feel, and every decision you make leaves an imprint on your neural pathways. Over time, these imprints become your habits, your tendencies, and even your identity. When you allow your attention to be dictated by the external world, you are effectively giving away the keys to your inner world. You're letting algorithms, opinions, and distractions define your mental architecture. But when you take that attention back and aim it inward toward your goals, your values, your inner state, you begin to revere yourself for clarity, purpose, and strength. This is not just a philosophical idea, it is rooted in biology. The prefrontal cortex, the region of the brain responsible for planning, decision-making, and focus, becomes stronger and more efficient with use. The more you practice a deep, intentional focus, the more capable your brain becomes at entering those states of concentration without resistance. But the opposite is also true. When you constantly switch tasks, check notifications, or indulge in distraction, you weaken that circuitry. You train your brain to thrive interruption. That is where regaining control over your attention is so foundational. It is not just about productivity, it is about identity. Focusing inward does not mean shutting the world out entirely. It means you learn to stop reacting and start responding. You become deliberate in your energy. Instead of being pulled in 1,000 directions by what others think, say, or expect of you, you anchor yourself in your own trajectory. You begin to ask, what am I building? Who am I becoming? And then with every day, every decision, every discipline adopted, you bring that answer to life. This is the mindset that separates those who drift from those who lead, those who collapse under pressure from those who rise above it. It is important to understand that attention is not just a passive lens, it is an active force. What you focus on, you amplify. If you consistently focus on fear, criticism, or comparison, your brain learns to prioritize those emotions. It strengthens the neural pathways associated with anxiety, insecurity, and self-doubt. But if you shift that same attention toward discipline, gratitude, effort, or growth, your brain begins to normalize those states. You become more resilient, more grounded, more capable, not because the world changed, but because your mind did. This is why silence and solitude are so powerful. They remove competing signals. They give your nervous system a break from constant input and allow you to recalibrate. In those quiet moments, your internal dialogue becomes clearer. You begin to notice your own thoughts unfiltered by the crowd. This is the spot where self-awareness is born, and with self-awareness comes control. You realize what you have been giving your attention to and whether it has been serving you or sabotaging you. Many people underestimate the power of directing attention inward because they confuse it with overthinking or self-absorption. But these are entirely different things. Overthinking is chaotic and unfocused. It's reactive. True inward focus is calm and intentional. It is not about ruminating on your problems, it is about observing them clearly, understanding their origins, and designating actions that align with your higher goals. It is about asking, what needs to be done today to move me forward? And then committing your full mental resources to that task. No divided focus. No performing for others. Just presence and purpose. This kind of self-directed attention is rare because it requires discipline. It requires saying no to distractions, no to the urge to prove yourself, no to the comfort of passivity. It demands that you trust in the long-term game. Because when you begin to focus inward, progress does not always feel obvious. No one claps for you when you decide to break a toxic habit or wake up early to build a skill. But beneath the surface, your brain is hanging. Your nervous system is adapting. Your capacity is expanding. Every repetition matters, even the invisible honest. Especially the invisible honest. When you make your focus about yourself not in a narcissistic sense, but in a strategic one, you begin to play a different game. You stop casting attention and start mastering attention. You stop measuring your worth by external validation and begin cultivating internal alignment. This gives you stability. Because the world will always be unpredictable. Circumstances will shift. People will come and go. Trends will rise and fall. But if you have built your strength on internal focus, none of that can knock you off course. Your direction comes from within, not from reaction. This internal orientation also improves your emotional regulation. When you are focused inward, you notice emotional triggers faster. You recognize when something is pulling you into old patterns, and you have the awareness to pause, breathe, and choose a better response. That is not weakness, that is mastery. And it only comes from the repeated act of paying attention to what is happening inside you, instead of blindly reacting to everything around you. Even your ability to connect with others improves when your attention is grounded. You become less needy, less performative, and more authentic. Because you are not looking to be completed or validated by others. You are looking to connect from a place of wholeness. You are able to listen better, speak with clarity, and hold space without judgment. This is the paradox. When you focus on yourself first, you have more to offer others. You are not pouring from an empty cup. There is also a team dimension to attention. Where you place your focus determines how you experience a team. When you are scattered, distracted, and overwhelmed, team feels like it is slipping away. But when you are fully immersed in a task, when your attention is locked in, team expands. You enter what psychologists call a flow state. In this state, your performance elevates, your creativity heightens, and your sense of self recedes. This is not magic, it is biology. It is your nervous system operating at full capacity. But flow cannot occur without focused attention. It cannot exist in a fragmented mind. Your goals, your dreams, your evolution as a personal hinge on your ability to cultivate and sustain attention. Without everything remains surface level. You bounce from idea to idea, mode to mode, without anchoring into anything lasting. But with it you gain depth, you gain follow-through, you gain power. And that power does not come from controlling others, it comes from mastering yourself. This is why focusing on yourself is the foundation, not the luxury. It is not a retreat from life, it is the groundwork for engaging with life at a higher level. Because only when your attention is disciplined can your actions become deliberate. And only when your actions are deliberate can your outcomes be consistent. All of this takes time. The brain does not change overnight, but it does change. And the most important variable in that change is what you repeatedly focus on. That is your lever. That is your advantage. Not talent. Not intelligence. Focus. The ability to keep showing up even when no one says. The ability to keep growing even when it feels slow. The ability to keep your energy centered on your path, not scattered across a dozen others. So while the world tries to pull your attention in every direction, remember this, you get to choose where it goes. And that how it's repeated daily is what happens who you become. Progress doesn't scream. It whispers in the small, quiet moments that most people overlook. In the world we live in, everything is built to demand your immediate attention, fast results, loud opinions, constant feedback. But true transformation is quiet. It happens in the shadows, away from the spotlight, in the solitude of effort that no one else sees. Consistency and discipline are the engines of real change, and they are almost always born in silence. This silence is not emptiness, it is space for you to think clearly, to move deliberately, and to build something real without distraction. There is a biological truth to this. The nervous system adapts through repetition and structure. Your brain thrives when you follow routines and build habits over time. It does not care if what you are doing is glamorous. It does not care if anyone else is watching. It only cares about the signal you send it over and over again. Every time you wake up early, even when you do not feel like it, your brain revires. Every time you push yourself through the discomfort of discipline, even when no one is applauding, you strengthen your prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for long-term planning and self-control. And over time, those neural adaptations accumulate. But only if you are consistent, only if you are willing to operate in silence. We live in a world obsessed with outcomes. But outcomes are a byproduct of the process. And the process requires stillness. It requires a kind of internal quiet, where you stop chasing validation and start respecting the grind. The grind is not about going harder than everyone else. It's about going longer. It is about showing up when your motivation has faded, when the novelty has worn off, and when the only thing left is your commitment to growth. That is when real discipline begins. Not when it is easy, but when it is boring. Not when it is exciting, but when it is silent. And in that silence, something powerful happens. You begin to hear yourself. Not the version of yourself that performs for others, but the version that exists beneath the noise, the version that wants something deeper than applause. You realize that the habits you build in private will determine the life you live in public. That the quiet work, the repetition, the unglamorous tasks are what shape your future. You don't need to announce what you are doing. You just need to keep doing it. Let your silence be the proof of your strength. There is a certain pace that comes with this mindset. When you stop performing for others, you conserve energy. You are no longer burning calories trying to explain yourself, justify your decisions, or seek permission. You are not interested in optics. You are interested in mastery. And mastery is a quiet path. It is made of long hours, small improvements, and an unwavering commitment to your standards. That level of focus and commitment cannot exist in a mind that is constantly seeking validation. It only lives in those who are content to build in silence. Consistency is misunderstood. People often think it means doing the same thing perfectly every day. But real consistency is flexible. It is adaptive. It means you keep showing up, even if the effort looks different depending on the day. It is not about perfection, it is about momentum. When you understand this, discipline becomes less about forcing yourself and more about aligning with your purpose. It becomes the rhythm of your life and not a punishment for your ambition. And when discipline becomes your rhythm, you could start to operate from a place of power. It is in the quiet, repetitive effort that you develop integrity. Integrity means doing what you said you would, though even when no one is watching. Especially when no one is watching. That's where your real character is built. Because when the applause fades and the spotlight moves on, what is left is your relationship with yourself. Did you stay true to your values? Did you keep your word? Did you push through the discomfort because you believed in the outcome even if it had not arrived yet? These are the questions that define the person you become, and they are answered not in noise but in silence. There is a reason elite performers in any field value stillness and routine. Whether it is athletes, artists, scientists, or entrepreneurs, their success is built on an inner structure that does not depend on the chaos of the outside world. They know that when everything else feels out of control, they can fall back on their discipline, on the habits they build quietly day after day, and that discipline becomes a kind of armor. It protects their energy. It shields their focus. It allows them to stay grounded when others are spinning out. You do not need to prove anything to anyone. That desire to be seen, to be acknowledged, to be validated, it's natural, but it is also a trap. Because if your actions are driven by the need for recognition, your motivation will die the moment the recognition fades. But if your actions are driven by values, by vision, by a commitment to something greater than the moment, then your momentum becomes unstoppable. It does not depend on mood. It does not depend on attention. It is rooted in something deeper, your identity. And identity is built in the silence. It is not built in the grand gestures. It is built in the decision to say no to distractions, In the hoitse to do the right thing when it would be easier to quit. In the quiet moments when you want to give up, but you don't. Every time you choose the hard path over the easy one, you reinforce a certain kind of self-respect. You start to see yourself as someone who follows through. Someone who finishes what they start. That belief becomes your foundation. And with that foundation, you can build anything. People underestimate how powerful that inner belief is. When you have shown up for yourself consistently, when you have done the work without needing applause, you carry a quiet confidence. Not arrogance, not ego, but certainty. The kind of certainty that does not need to be spoken. It is in your posture, in your tone, in your actions. That certainty tells the world. I have done the work. I did not skip steps. I have earned this. And the only way to earn it is through consistent discipline in silence. The reason silence matters so much is because it removes the distractions that dilute your effort. When you are constantly sharing your plans, your goals, your routines with others, you risk triggering dopamine before the work is even done. Your brain begins to reward you for the announcement rather than the achievement. And that wakens your drive. Silence protects that drive. It keeps the reward tied to the result, not the performance. It keeps you focused on execution, not attention. This does not mean you isolate yourself completely. It means you become strategic about where you place your energy. You understand that your time and attention are finite. Every conversation, every notification, every comment is outsourced something. And when you are working on something important, something meaningful, you cannot afford to bleed energy. You have to conserve it, channel it, use it with intention. That is what silence allows you to do. In a world that is constantly yelling, whispering becomes revolutionary. When everyone else is trying to be louder, to be faster, to be saying you slow down. You ground yourself. You build something that lasts, and you don't need to rush, because you understand that the quiet, consistent path always outpitches the noisy scattered one in the long run. Even failure looks different when you have built your foundation in silence. Because when something does not work, you don't crumble. You analyze, you adapt, you keep moving. You don't need to sabotage or protect. An image because you were not doing it for show in the first place. You were doing it for you, for the mission, for the future, for the person you are becoming. That is why silence is not weakness, it's control. Control over your mind, your team, your energy, your trajectory. This level of control is rare, and that is exactly why it is powerful. Most people are reactive. They live at the mercy of moods, opinions, and circumstances. But when you are grounded in discipline, when your consistency lives in silence, you become immune to the chaos. You don't chase you build. You don't perform you produce. And while others burn out, you keep going. Not because it is easy, but because it is who you are now. You become someone others cannot quite figure out. They do wonder how you stay so focused, how you keep improving, how you remain steady when everything else is in flux. And the answer will always come back to the same truth. You built your foundation in silence. You mastered your rhythm. You honored your commitments, even when no one was watching. And now, the results speak for themselves.